Okay, welcome to the Getting Started with Cloud9 webinar. My name is Brady Dowling. I'm a customer happiness engineer with Cloud9. And so I'm going to be doing a general overview of Cloud9. Here are some of the things I'm going to be talking about. Shouldn't be too long, should be 10 minutes, just like I said, and then we'll have a quick QA at the end. So yeah, let's not delay. Let's just go ahead and jump in and get started. So here, once you get signed up, this is what your dashboard will look like. And so this is kind of where you go every time you sign in, and you can see all of your projects here. So right now, we call them workspaces. So right now I'm under workspaces. I could also see all of the projects that are shared with me by other people in my network, people that are in my company, or just friends. Anyone that shared something with me, I can see workspaces shared there. And then if I've connected Bitbucket or GitHub, I can see repositories that I have in there, and I can just clone these straight from a button right here. And if I want to connect Bitbucket or GitHub, I can come over here to connected services. And right now I have both of these connected, but if I wanted to disconnect one or connect a different account, I can do that. That's no problem. So now I'll go ahead and head back to my workspaces, and I'll just show you the process of creating a new workspace. A name is required, but a description is not. Let's see how good my typing abilities are. And then we get to choose if it's public or private. Free accounts get one private workspace, and then if you're on a premium account, then you get more private workspaces. You could also choose if it's a Salesforce workspace, if you do have a Salesforce plan, or you can choose an SSH workspace, which basically gives you the Cloud9 editor and your own server, your own machine, your own resources to work with. So that can be really great. Also a premium feature that can be great for people that have the premium plan. And then if we want to clone our project straight from a Git repository, we can do that. Just copy and paste the URL in here. But if you're not going to do that, you can choose from one of these templates. These basically just give you a preset list of files. And generally, the workspace is the same aside from those list of files. So I'll show you kind of what I mean by that. And I'll just jump into a WordPress workspace. And so now while it's creating my workspace, once it is created and opened, I'll see basically three panes from the start. I'll see a terminal, I'll see a code editor, and a file navigation on the left-hand side. And so just like how I mentioned the template giving you a list of files, it basically just gave me these WordPress files. So they're all set up. I don't have to do a WordPress install. Excuse me, I don't have to download the WordPress files. I still have to go through the install. And then it also gives me a specific runner. So basically when I click this run project, since I chose the WordPress template, it's going to automatically run this with Apache rather than if I chose a Node project, it would run it with Node, or if I chose Python, it would run it with Python, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go ahead and jump back into this workspace that I have here. So we went through a couple of these. Multiple selections and keyboard shortcuts. So one of the cool things you can see in here, let's see if I've got something here. So if I have a variable or something else that I want to change, and it shows up multiple places. I'm using a Mac right now, so I can do Control Alt and then Right, and somewhat standard for code editors, but I could, if I wanted to, I could change these all at once and go from there. So obviously don't want to do that. But if I wanted to change the keyboard shortcuts or see a list of them, I can see a full list right in here from the settings. And so I can see each of these actions. I can search for one if I want to. Maybe I only want ones with tab in it. See next tab. Okay, maybe I want to change this one, and I could do like Command Alt 7. And so now I just changed to that. So you're free to customize all of these keyboard shortcuts and do it however you would like it to. I know some people like the shortcuts attached to Sublime or other editors, and you're free to make those fit there. So let's see what we've got next here. Yeah, let's talk briefly about running and previewing an application. So I'm going to open up this PHP file, and if I want to run this, I've got a couple options here. So I've got this run button, and that will basically just predict what runner or what server, how you want to run this file. Since this is PHP, it's going to default to Apache. For a Node file, it would default to Node, and so on and so forth. And if I'm going to preview this, I've got two options here. One is a raw content, and the other is preview the running application. And I'll show you the difference between those right now. So if I run this, it's going to serve this up on my application URL. And I can open this and I can see hello world. Now, when I go to preview, if I do preview running application, it'll just show me that exact thing that I just went to. But if I do raw content, this is basically like double clicking a file on your local machine. Like if you double clicked a PHP file, it wouldn't serve it up with an Apache server, or it wouldn't serve it up with any server. It would just ask you to download it basically like this. So when you do preview raw content, that's good for static files like HTML or Markdown. Like this will work here. Oh, excuse me, it's still working off of my PHP file. So this will work for static files, but it's not what you want for a Node file or a PHP file. You're just going to want to run it with that. So let's jump over to this Node file, and I'll talk a little bit more about running a file. So one thing to note about Cloud9 is that the ports that are publicly available are 80, 8080, 8081, and 8082. So that's 8080, 8081, and 8082. And the default port is 8080. And so that's going to be this process.env.port. And so when you run your application on a different port, you won't be able to view it. But if you run it on 8080, it'll be shown completely fine. So let's go ahead and run this Node application. I'll make sure to stop my PHP so it's not taking up port 8080 anymore. And then once that's clear, I can run this Node application, and it's going to say server running at, and then it's going to tell me exactly where it's running. And it looks like I might have that Apache still running there. So let me head to my process list, and Apache is stopped, so that's good. And I'll try running this one more time, and if that doesn't work, then there's a pretty fail-safe way to do this, but maybe it was just taking a little bit longer to stop Apache. So yeah, I was taking a little bit extra time to stop Apache. If that didn't work, I can just come up here and restart, and that's just basically like rebooting your machine. I do that a lot if I ever am confused with things. It's no big deal, just like turning your machine on and off again. So just like I said, this process.env.ip, that's going to show 0.0.0. Let's see, was that 4 zeros? It'll show where that's serving it up and the port that that's serving it on. And so that's 8080. So that is running a Node application. And then I can go ahead and stop this again. And I'm just going to talk to you about how to use the terminal and some specifics around that. So I do have, even though you can see file navigation, you can see a code editor, and it looks nice and basically catered to you, so you don't really have to set anything up in your workspace. You do still have full control. So you have a terminal where you can execute Linux commands. You're given a Linux VM, and so not only can you do simple things like showing things that are in your directory, but you can also install, let's see, you can install things that you might want to use. So I have full sudo access and I have control over my machine. So even though Cloud9 sets up a lot of things for you, like Node, like Python, like Apache, and it removes a lot of setup time that you might normally do, you also do have full control over your environment and you can make changes as you'd like. Okay, before I bring this to a close and end this, I just want to quickly show you how to share a workspace, and also maybe I'll touch on the Node debugger really quickly. But basically, to share a workspace, all you have to do is share your URL. So if I wanted to copy and paste this into like a GChat or Skype or whatever, then I could do that. But I can also invite people by their Cloud9 username or their email address. So I've already invited someone here, so I can kick them out, and then I'll just re-invite here. It's clearly a real but not used username. So I've made that invite. And then now this is actually me, another account that I have. If I were to be using this account, then I could jump in. And from my end, I can give him read or write access. And again, I can kick him out if I want to. So that's no problem. But if I do have one of my coworkers or one of my friends jump in, they can just view this URL and it'll do a Google Docs kind of thing where it's like, hey, would you like to request access? If they request access, I'll see it right here and I can grant access. So actually, if anyone wants to jump in here and give it a shot, you can. But so I could grant access to them here. And then from there, it's basically like Google Docs where you can see people coding real time. And we can do code reviews, we can do collaboration, and we can do things instantly. And so it's really great for people that work remotely, but it's also great for people that work close by and just want to collaborate on their own screen. Okay, so I think that basically does it for the overview that I was going to give. I'll go through and see if there are any questions that you guys have. Let's see. So there are no questions right now, but if you guys have any questions, there should be a little Q&A widget where you can see a text prompt and you can ask questions. So feel free to stick on if you want to ask questions, or if you're good with that, then go ahead and jump back into Cloud9, C9.io. Or if you want more detailed documentation and more detailed help, then feel free to jump over to docs.c9.io. Otherwise, I'll stick on here and I'll wait and see if anyone has questions. But for right now, I don't see anything specific. So it looks like we have one question around performance. And I can give a brief overview of that. But if you have a specific question about performance, then please go ahead and ask that. Let me see what the other specific questions are. So there's one here about snippets. So there are snippets available. Let me show you. We have, let me see if I can maneuver this and talk at the same time. So many people use Emmet, and Emmet is pre-installed on Cloud9. And so if you are looking to use Emmet, then you can just use that right out of the box. But as for custom snippets, we do have custom snippets also. Let me see where that would be. That's part of our SDK. And I actually haven't toyed with that personally, but the details of that are in here. And so you can create your own personal snippets. This will be, there's no interface to do this right now. So this will be a little bit more developer centric, a little bit more technical. But go ahead and jump into our SDK URL and check out the snippets documentation. And then that should give you a good rundown of how to use snippets with Cloud9. Okay, so let me see. So URLs, there's one question about URLs being valid when users are not logged in. So let me show you how I can broadcast this. So I'll just use this quick PHP file. I'll run this. And so now that's serving on this URL. And if I want to share this application URL, this is going to be public. And this is going to be viewable whether I am logged in or not. And it'll be viewable, since it's public, it'll be viewable to anyone, whether you have a Cloud9 account or not. And so, I mean, anyone can go to this URL and then it would show this hello world, or if I haven't done anything here, it would show whatever I have. If you're going to see the editor, then you're going to need to be logged in and preview these. If you want to preview a file, you don't need to be logged in to see the preview of a file. So for this index.html, let me show something here. I could preview this, just like I said, live preview. And if I want to pop this out into my Chrome tab, this URL, this will be viewable by people that, this actually, excuse me, this is only viewable by users of Cloud9. So really, if you want people to see things who aren't signed in, you'll want them to use this application URL, but that'll be running whether you are signed in or not. So I could show something on that URL. I could run something here on my server. I could log out and then let other people see it in the future. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Let me see a little bit more here. So there's one question about training recommended for Cloud9 on Lynda. So I personally don't know of any courses that address Cloud9 specifically on Lynda. So I'm not really sure I could answer that. As for lynda.com in general, if that's what you're asking, Lynda courses are good. So I don't know. I'm not really sure I can answer that specifically, but I don't know of any Cloud9 training on lynda.com, but lots of Lynda courses are great. Let's see. So okay, so I mentioned the performance one, and thank you for clarifying that. So the question is, I hope you can talk in general about how coding experience is like on Cloud9 versus coding on a normal mid-sized commercial development machine. I would expect it to be slower, obviously, but how much slower? So I think this is kind of hard to describe, but this might be something that you just get a feel for on your own. But in general, there is a little bit more RAM used on Cloud9 workspaces, especially when you have people collaborating. Usually each extra person that's collaborating, they take about 40 megabytes of RAM. And so on a free workspace, you'll get a half gig of RAM, so 512 megabytes of RAM. And if you have, let's say, 10 collaborators and each of them are using, like I said, about 40 megabytes of RAM, if you get to like 11 or 12 or 13 people collaborating, then you're going to be crashing that workspace. So collaborators take up more RAM. And yeah, that's, like I said, it's tough to put a really hard and scientific answer on the performance, but I guess that's just something that I'd recommend you try out on your own and then see what you think is, if you feel that it's comfortable for you. Let's see. So this one question is port forwarding. Which ports can be forwarded? Could I gain SSH access to a workspace? So yes, you can gain SSH access to a workspace. Let me show you. I don't have a, I'll just jump into my dashboard here and I'll show you an SSH workspace that I have. So let me see. This is for just a WordPress blog that is hosted on DigitalOcean. And like I said, this basically just gives me the Cloud9 editor with all of the files and resources and whatever I have on my DigitalOcean machine. And so I have terminal access. I have all of these nice things from Cloud9, but I have the disk space and the RAM that I would get from my DigitalOcean machine. So this is just giving me SSH access to that DigitalOcean machine, and that's just straight in a workspace. And then as far as which ports can be forwarded, I think for that, you're just going to get use out of 8080, 8081, and then 8082. I've heard that it's possible to do some sort of reverse proxy with Apache or something else, but I've never personally done that, and so yeah, I can't exactly speak to how that would work. Let's see. So there's one. Let me read through the other questions here. So here's one question that says, is most of your customers using Cloud9 for regular development or more for collaboration use cases and regular development on non-Cloud9 IDE? So that's a good question. Some people, as they're starting to use Cloud9, they kind of ease into it, and they maybe they'll put one project on Cloud9, or maybe, like you said, they'll just use it for collaboration. But really what it's supposed to be, and a lot of times what we find it to be, is that people just like coding in the cloud and they like not being tied to a machine. And so they transfer everything into Cloud9. And we recently actually heard from somebody in South Carolina who just got hit by a flood, and he basically said their company lost like all of their machines that their code was on, or that their code would have been on. But since all of their code is on Cloud9, they just picked up some new machines, and they didn't even miss a day of work because of it. So to answer your question, some people transition slowly into Cloud9 because of maybe hesitancies and learning the intricacies of it, but it really is fully capable of handling all of the projects that you have. So hopefully that answers that question. Sorry, that question about SSHing and workspaces. So good question. What the question really was is, could I use SSH from another server into Cloud9 Workspace? So good question. Quite a few people ask that, and that is a feature that has been requested. Right now, that's not possible. I know that's something that we've wanted to do for a little while now, and I just don't know what sort of priority that has. So right now, that's not possible, but we also want that to be possible. So hopefully that helps. There's a question here about how our pricing model is done. If we've considered a dynamic scaling model for resources similar to Amazon Web Service. So basically the only thing that I'm really aware of there is that I know the people in Cloud9 that make our pricing plan, they're always reevaluating it. They're always looking at what works for us, but more especially for our users. And we really want this to be something that users really enjoy. So yeah, I mean, I can't really give you direct answer, have we considered that? Absolutely. We've considered tons of different pricing models. And that's something that we're just trying to make sure is the best possible for the Cloud9 community. So thanks for asking that. Let's see. Let me see the other questions here. Unless you delete your account accidentally, I can't remember what that was referring to. But yeah, don't delete your account accidentally, because sometimes people do. We try to avoid that as much as possible by warning you this is not undoable and all of your work will be lost, but don't delete your account accidentally. Sorry about the screen. I'm using a Retina screen, so next time I'll just have to decrease my resolution. So thank you for that. Let me see what else. Does Cloud9 provide Meteor support in all third-party packages for Meteor? So with Meteor, you might have seen this, and let me see if I can show it to you here. You might have seen this when or maybe you've already seen this when you're creating a workspace, but we do provide a Meteor template. And so I have probably created one called Meteor before, so I'll just call it Meteor 2. But basically, this will just give you this will just give you a workspace with your Meteor general startup things in your navigation pane. And so do we provide Meteor support? Yes, we do, and all third-party packages for Meteor. So in regards to supporting Meteor, like I said, sometimes Cloud9 can use a little bit more RAM. And as a customer happiness engineer, that's something that I've noticed from people that are using Meteor. So right now, a lot of people that use Meteor, depending on what dependencies they have and what packages they use, they can run out of RAM really quickly. Now, some people, maybe it's just because they're not using certain packages. Some people love it and they swear by it, but others get hit with these RAM limits really quickly. And that's something that we're looking to address right now, and we're actively working on a fix for that. But right now, you could see some memory limitations. So I think that handles it. Oh, okay, so the unless you delete your account, that was in reference to the South Carolina flood. Thanks. So yeah, don't delete your account, then you'll be good. Okay, I think, let me see. So there was one question about a React dev server. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that means. You can use React and you can do development with React. We actually program our dashboard on React. Here, this is all done with React. So React works well with Cloud9, and we do. You may or may not have heard of dogfooding, which is basically using your own software, and Cloud9 we use our own software. So all of my development and all development that anyone in Cloud9 does are on Cloud9 workspaces. So we're always doing that. Let me see. So there's a question specifically about the RAM issue. When I can just sign up Cloud9 cheapest plan and SSH to my own development machine, which has more RAM. Yes, that's exactly right. So if you do see, if you're not happy with the memory or the disk space on a workspace, then SSH workspaces are awesome. Like I said, it'll require a premium plan, and you can just sign up for the very cheapest premium plan, and then you'll get access to SSH workspaces. And so you'll get the Cloud9 IDE and editor, and you'll be able to work on your code in your SSH workspace, and you'll have all that RAM and all that disk space. Yep, so we do dog fooding, so that is good. There was another comment about that. Thank you for that. And coming to the end of the questions here. So there's a question. This question says, I just tried to share an application and public was disabled. So that's for non-free access. So hopefully this answers your question, but a free account gets one private workspace. And so you can make your editor private, you can make your application private, and you can make your preview private. I think I briefly showed you those three things here. And I kind of talked about what those mean. And so if I wanted to make this private, even on a free account, I could do that as long as it's just that one. And since if I do make it public, it's just going to be publicly readable. And so obviously no one will be able to make changes and write to the files that are in your workspace. But yeah, it's just publicly readable. And then, I mean, you have control over what is done in your workspace. So they don't have control over a terminal or writing to files and things like that. Okay, so I think that answers all of the questions, and that should be everything. Thank you so much for attending. And if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to us at support@c9.io. And then always our docs are pretty quality, so be sure to check up on those, docs.c9.io. And again, thank you for attending, and hopefully this was helpful, and I hope you enjoy coding on the cloud, and have a good day.